Good morning, good afternoon, and a good evening to all the wonderful consultants, fellow HR professionals, and professionals in general who have taken your valuable time to attend this webinar. I am truly excited to take you through this webinar with Dr. Raj, and I am hoping all of you are as excited as I am to learn more about nPAS. But before we get into what is nPAS and what this webinar is all about, I think it is fair for me to explain and introduce myself first. As you can see, my name is Shashank. By qualification, I am a chartered accountant, qualified about a decade ago. However, I have never practiced. I have always been more excited in building organizations and being part of organizations that are growing and innovating. And that's what brings me into HR Footprints, and my association with HR Footprints also extends to almost a decade, in fact, more than a decade. So that's a little brief about me. What I do at HR Footprints is I do contribute to the finance because with the chartered accountant tag, you are expected to take care of the finance. And apart from that, I love adding value to the overall strategy as well as the entire product innovation cycle at HR Footprints. So that's more or less what I keep doing at HR Footprints, and I'm honored to take this webinar and bring this webinar forward to all of you. And just to give a brief about HR Footprints as an organization, HR Footprints is founded in 2006 by Dr. G. Rajkumar. We fondly call him as Dr. Raj. In 2006, we started. So recently, we've in fact completed 19 years, and now we are into our 20th year of association with more than 500 plus clients. So far, we would have done projects across talent management. We helped organizations transform their people processes. A lot of organizations have outsourced their entire HR department to us. We act as fractional HR heads. We act as HR advisors. We do leadership coaching. We do leadership assessments. So a good body of work is something that we've been doing for the past couple of decades almost. And this little bug of how to bring all the knowledge that we've acquired through the conversations, through the assignments for the past couple of decades, how can we kind of create all this into a capsule, into a meaningful product, is something that all of us have been brainstorming. And I think it again came from Dr. Raj, was one idea, which is nPAS. And we will discover more about what is nPAS through this conversation. So nPAS is the brainchild of Dr. Raj and an outcome of HR Footprints' 2 decades of experience of working with multiple clients across the globe. And we'll learn more about this entire concept of nPAS going forward. And this webinar will specially focus on how we've in fact constructed and built nPAS, the genesis of nPAS, and more importantly, how can consultants power up their business practice and grow their business using this nPAS framework. And to take us through this entire conversation, in fact, I have the honor of introducing and welcoming Dr. Raj. But before I, in fact, welcome him, let me just quickly introduce Dr. Raj also to all of you. Dr. Raj, most of you may be knowing, but for some of you who may not know Dr. Raj in person, Dr. Raj carries close to 4 decades of experience. And first couple of decades was more into academics and corporate HR. He worked with marquee organizations, global organizations. And for the past couple of decades, he has been running HR Footprints. He's the founder and CEO at HR Footprints. By qualification, he is a doctorate, a PhD doctor in operation research, and a very well-known HR guru and expert in this entire management fraternity. And he personally wears the hat of an advisor, a mentor, an executive coach, as well as a trainer who probably would have trained more than 35,000 people. And for all of us at HR Footprints, he's our guru and the go-to man. And when it comes to nPAS, this is his brainchild, and it is only wise for me to hear more from him and take this conversation through his thoughts and through his words. So, welcome, Dr. Raj. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, in fact, for having me on this webinar.
So, Dr. Raj, just to kickstart our conversation, I've been briefly touching upon some words like consultants and more so about your experience of running HR footprints. Essentially, you are still playing the role of a consultant to your clients for the past couple of decades. So, what has been your observation in terms of what should really be the role of a consultant and what has been the role of a good consultant in shaping up the growth story of an organization?
Well, that's a good opening question. And if I were to talk about the role of consultants, how do they contribute? Obviously, I'll have great words to say because I've been part of it myself for the last 2 decades. But even otherwise, honestly, I have seen from my experience as well as people who helped me when I was part of the corporate and when I keep meeting a lot of other consulting friends, etc. I think consultants do make a huge difference. They make tremendous contribution, and if I may add, some of that contribution could be very visible, but many a time it's a very silent contribution. It's very, very silent contribution. And most of the time, our job is to make other leaders and other organizations more successful. And we derive tremendous happiness, in this process. And if you just permit me, let me just throw a few statistics here.
Of course.
Since you asked what is the kind of consultant contribution it is, I was just going through one, report, a research report. It's by an organization called KentleyResearch.com, right? KentleyResearch.com. They brought out one interesting report on global report in 2025. And as a part of that, I was going through that and I understood that the global HR consulting practice seems to be, in terms of the revenue terms, it's around 72 billion. It's a fairly sizable kind of a number. And out of that, half of it almost comes from Americas. So almost 32, 33 billion dollar. And when it
Yeah.
comes to Asia, it's a very kind of a moderate number of around 12 billion. And out of that, if you slice it up, the Indian context or Africa or Middle East is around 2.5 billion, and India stands at 1 billion. Now look at the volume of the work, the number of clients, number of organizations that operate in this region versus the amount of the revenue that is generated through the HR consulting practice. And when I say consulting practice of 1 billion in India, that would include recruitment, staffing, employee services, payroll management, right? HR tech, and some part of performance management, organization development, talent management, etc. kind of thing. So why am I throwing all these numbers is it consultants have been contributing a lot, but when I see the opportunity here, I see a tremendous opportunity. I mean, it's a matter of time before the market catches up and starts realizing the contribution of consultants and make use of their expertise, the diverse expertise that they bring to the table. And I see a tremendous opportunity, one in terms of the revenue and in terms of the impact that we can add to the organizations. From both perspectives, I see it. Just to conclude that particular point, but all of that growth opportunity seems to be coming from diagnostics, analysis, measurement, and solutioning using sometimes HR tech or digital kind of solutions, right? If we stick to the traditional kind of a rule, the contributions of HR consultants, that seems to be still having a space, but in terms of the value, it is much lesser. If you want to really grow your consulting practice, the coming days, coming years, it's going to be more about diagnostics, analysis, measurements, solutioning, and using a bit of digital aspects. So therefore, all in all, the globe has accepted the HR consultants contribution. Now in this region, it's a matter of time that I think before it happens. So we are just on the verge of a much bigger opportunity opening up. So therefore, I would really summarize that they have been making great contribution, and they will make even bigger contribution in the years to come.
No, that's wonderful. So when you talk about, in fact, I was taking notes. Three very important points you're talking about. One is digitization. The second is diagnosis. I mean, digital adoption, diagnosis, as well as measurement.
And
So,
solutioning based on the
and
measurement solutioning aspect. And
solutioning.
in fact, that is where the whole npas has come in.
Yeah.
npas is not only a diagnostic and measurement, it is also solutioning kind of a tool. So that is exactly the space we are in.
Okay. No, no. Anyway, now that you brought up the word nPAS, I think let's jump into the webinar context also. From consultants, now let's also understand what is nPAS. And when I was introducing, I was talking about 20 years of collective experiences that led to something like nPAS. So, can you take everyone through the genesis of nPAS? 1 second, I'll just look. Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I may be using one or two slides here and there, but let me just, before I sort of explain the technically the npas part, very colloquially, let me just present a few corridor talks. Talks and comments that we often hear in organizations, in meetings, in cafeterias and all of that. So there is one CEO, a CFO, who actually showed me the data of the past few years, and
Mhm.
just presented to me that, see, look at this, Dr. Raj, in this organization every year religiously we prepare business plans, and here is our anticipated or expected top line that we wanted to achieve, and I will give you the data what has been the actual achievement, and it
Mhm.
was never crossing 76%. It is never. I mean, the best that one of the years happened was 76%. And his question is, then why are we setting all these goals when no one is owning these up? I mean, what are these business plans all about? Who is owning these business plans? That was his straight question. So this is one interesting example or context. And there's another one. It's a There are some leaders who actually say it is so tiring to drive and to keep pushing and reviewing and monitoring my team members, because they just nod their heads in team meetings, but after that they just do what they are comfortable doing. Where is the ownership? And that seems to be another kind of a disappointing kind of a feeling expressed by a leader also, right? Or I also have seen, to be fair, there are people who said, see, from day one it's been my work ethic that I will do my job to the perfection and to the best of my ability. But what happens if other department guys are not cooperating? I mean, can I alone achieve results? But in this organization, there's a line that we can't cross beyond a point. There are sensitivities involved. Okay, so that's another interesting context. And there is another one which says, uh, especially after the appraisals and the reward cycle, there is a usual comment in this organization: you do, you don't do, you get the same reward. Kind of a feeling, and this is something that I hear from the people who got rewards and who also missed their rewards. Both actually have the same kind of thing. And all in all, when I talk to the promoters or business heads or owners or managing directors and all that, they always have this positive twist to the whole story. This is somehow, Dr. Raj, I think as a collective team, when I look at ourselves, I think we are capable of much more than what we are achieving or what we are performing. Something is really, stopping us. Okay, so why did I tell you all these anecdotal, comments? I mean, the scenarios were when I kept on hearing it over the years, that is when it triggered to me saying, I think this whole aspect of performance, I think has to be studied even more closely. Yes, we do have performance management, we do have goal setting, we do have incentive schemes, all kinds of things, but still there has to be something else that is putting all of that together in converting this system into a delivery. And that
Sure.
is when we have summarized this whole thing into a small equation, which, of course, it is a little oversimplification, but to make the point, I think it makes a lot of sense. I started noticing that I think performance is equal to capability multiplied by accountability. Now, that is exactly what the managing director, in the example that I was mentioning, we seem to be capable people, but something else is stopping us from delivering our best. That statement is exactly the, I mean, this equation is exactly the capture of that particular statement. So what is it saying? We are capable, so the C is available, capability, but what is missing seems to be the accountability, right? Will your team own it and actually deliver it? We are capable, but do we own it and actually deliver it? And that is the one which led to the whole genesis of nPAS. Why is it so? Because capability assessments, competency assessment, reviews, and all of that we have done good job as consultants, as HR professionals. There is enough body of work that has happened in the capability aspect. But when it comes to the accountability aspect, we feel the pain, but we don't have a tool. We don't have a standard that we really say, hey, if you achieve this, I think, yes, you are an accountable organization. And that led to the whole conceptualization of nPAS. So, in fact, that is exactly the definition that we have. So, maybe in the next slide, we have that.
So, in fact, this is where I wanted to ask. You said we have oversimplified the equation of performance, but it totally makes sense. So, but when you kind of try to drill down what is contributing to accountability, is there any further architecture that you have developed in terms of what all contributes to the
That,
accountability?
yeah. See, accountability is in a kind of a normal colloquial kind of a context. We can simply call it as ownership, a sense of ownership towards outcomes, its results. I think oftentimes we get a little mixed up with this responsibility, accountability kind of aspect. Responsibility is all about your commitment to do the task or activity with a lot of responsibility. But if that particular task is not giving you the result, do you actually try something else also till you achieve the result? That is the aspect of accountability that we are talking about. It is ownership towards results, right? How to create, I mean, in organizations, what actually contributes to this accountability? We understood, I think there are 5 dimensions. There are essentially 5 dimensions that we understood. Sometimes such kind of ownership, such kind of accountability is driven by the leader. Sometimes, leaders can induce that. They have a tremendous role to play in this. Or sometimes over a period of time, consultants, the way I think we have today's audience, they have helped the organization to build such a kind of a culture where they embedded accountability into the culture itself. So that could be another beautiful way of driving accountability. Sometimes our talent acquisition experts, who may be on this webinar, the TA consultants, they may have included accountability as one of the screening aspects, when they hired the individuals. So therefore, I think persons, the individuals have brought in accountability sometimes, or sometimes internally there are strong processes that drive accountability, or the consequences, the kind of statement that I said, right? You do, you don't do, you get the same. Maybe the way the systems are driven or designed and the consequences are defined, I think maybe they are also driving accountability. And we are not saying any one of them will do the magic. I think our research shows that all these 5 things together, these are the 5 ingredients. We call it as 5 drivers of accountability. When we put all of them together, it gives you that sense of accountability in the organization. And when we assess all these things, and if it comes to a certain stage, That is what we actually call it as nPAS, right? So the net performance accountability score. It is an assessment of all the five drivers put together. It's not any one of them, right? When you have that kind of assessment at an organization and you get an nPAS, and whether it is meeting the standard or not, I think that is the next one that we talk about. So if you have crossed certain score on nPAS, net performance accountability score, you meet a standard of accountability as an organization. Whether you have attained, if you have attained that standard of accountability, that means yes, I think you created beautiful in organization, which could be a sum total of all the five drivers. All
Right.
the five drivers, you worked hard to elevate your organization and attain that standard of accountability. And how do I know whether I have attained that standard? nPAS is the kind of the measure. nPAS is the measure which tells you whether my organization is attaining that standard or not. Okay. So in a nutshell, if I were to put it this way, how do I imagine an organization which meets this standard of accountability? Yeah, how do I
Hmm.
define it? I have put together a slide on that. So maybe you can move to the next one. It simply says, if my organization has nPASed, so nPASed means my organization has achieved a particular standard of accountability as per nPAS score, that we call it as nPASed organization. Okay, if an organization has nPASed, it means, so maybe a little bit of jumble on this slide there, but yeah, so what it really means is, in this organization, in an organization that has nPASed, people care more about results. They're just not busy doing the activities or tasks, but they actually care about results. And an
Right.
organization where rewards commensurate with effort and the contribution, right?
Right.
And an organization where leaders nicely balance between caring for people and also driving results. That's a nice balance that they have hit. An nPASed organization will have all these characteristics. And where, very
The-
important point, where collaboration in nPASed organization is much more than just a camaraderie. Not just feeling good or being nice to each other. Together we actually create a value, and that is the sign of an nPASed organization. And where systems are designed to drive sense of ownership among people, it is not isolating, it is not criticizing, it is not catching anybody. A lot of people say, I'll make you accountable. Usually I think this is a usual colloquial use of accountability. Almost the tonality makes it sound as if I'll catch you. But the idea of systems is not about catching people, it is to induce a sense of accountability. Now, that is more sustainable than just fear of saying that I will catch you. I will catch you is a very, very rudimentary level of accountability. So, our definition of an nPASed organization will have all these characteristics. And now, just imagine, as consultant, if you are able to build an organization which matches to these characteristics, what a tremendous value we can make as a consultant or as an advisor or a freelancer or whatever it is, right? So
yeah.
that is the genesis, and this is the concept of nPAS. And maybe a long explanation for a
Wonderful.
short.
No, no, but I think very useful. In fact, I was just observing each of these five scenarios is again summing up to one word: ownership. And like you said, what all is contributing to ownership, and at a basic level, at a high level, ownership is being accountable. And especially like you said, instead of the rudimentary approach, if it is more inherent and within the system through the leaders. In fact, it also, I understand it is linking up to the five drivers that you were actually
Yeah.
explaining, saying the contributors to the overall accountability in an organization. I think some of these examples resonate with those drivers as well.
So if I
So
may just quickly add,
yeah,
so if an nPASed organization meets these characteristics, what is going to be the result of such an organization? It will turn out to be a very result oriented performing organization. Very result oriented performing organization, which in fact helps many stakeholders. In fact, a growing organization, a performing organization, is so interesting. it serves the needs and expectations of several stakeholders, including employees, including leaders, including owners, including shareholders, including customers. It is not one. So if your organization has nPAS, this is a way to address the expectations and the needs of several stakeholders. That is the beauty of a consultant helping an organization to nPAS.
So we started this conversation with by understanding the overall consultant landscape, the growing opportunities, and especially the areas where more and more consultants are required to add value, like the diagnosis, measurement, solutioning, etc. And on top of that, we also started. You started throwing light on this specific tool or a framework rather, nPAS, which is probably falls into a diagnosis, measurement, solutioning, a mix of all those. So maybe if you can help all of us bridge this puzzle, a consultant, the role of a consultant, and a framework like nPAS, what is the convergence of both of these? What do you think a consultant can really? How do you think a consultant can really leverage a framework like nPAS? If I were a consultant, what should I be doing?
That's exactly the crux of this webinar, in fact, right? If I were to be a consultant, how can I leverage nPAS in my own practice? Let me be very, very realistic, very practical on the ground. When I say how can I leverage nPAS in my practice, I would actually say how can I increase my revenues as a consultant, for example, or how can I build and enhance my credibility in the eyes of my clients. I think both are important. To me, I think tangible revenues and money are important as a consultant. And even more important are some of the intangibles are also very, very important. I should be one step above in such a way that I'm so equipped with necessary tools and frameworks, I'm able to help my client organizations. I mean, that gives a tremendous positioning and a great way of image building, to me as a consultant. So I would like to use nPAS maybe very specifically in three ways. Okay, so number one, possibly I just hinted that a while ago, which is I think the straight away I can become a champion helping my client organizations nPAS. So I can help my client organization become nPAS organization. And what is an nPAS organization? We already have defined. It will have tremendous value delivered to multiple stakeholders. Now, can I be the champion? Can I be the catalyst? Can I be the person who will help my client organizations get nPAS? I think that's a straight away, greatly credible way of utilizing nPAS. So, which means I have to have my client organization participating in nPAS, I mean, using this nPAS tool to check whether they reach that standard of accountability in the organization. And if I have attained, then they become nPAS organization. That's a great value that I can bring as a consultant to my client organizations. Now, obviously, the corollary of this one would be, what if my client organization falls short of that standard of accountability? So obviously, if someone has nPAS, I think they have arrived. That's the kind of a standard. The standards that we are actually expecting from nPAS. If they have achieved it, if you are able to help your client, great. But what if they actually discover that they are falling short, slightly or maybe deeply? What is that value that you can bring? Maybe to make this point, let me just use the help of a slide now. I'll just show you the next slide. So I hope it is visible. Now, this is a slice from an nPAS report that happened to one of the clients. So obviously, all this client information is absolutely confidential. There are no indications of any client here. But suppose if you say nPAS, now 29.3 is what it is indicated. Now I just need to give you little technical details. nPAS, when we measure, it can vary theoretically from -100 to +100. That's the scale. And needless to say, I think if an organization is moving more towards 100, I think that's the best. But of course, within nPAS, I think we have defined certain standards, certain X percentage that they need to attain to be nPASed as an organization. Now, here 29.3 definitely is not meeting that standard. And this is the example. This is the second scenario that I'm talking about. Now, if the client organization say, hey, you said I think we will get nPASed, but looks at we have failed, we are not really reaching that standard of accountability. What should we do? That is where, as a consultant, you can go much deeper, take a deep dive, and this is exactly the diagnostics that we are talking about. Do a diagnostic of this report, and if you just take a closer look at this one, there are 5 drivers. Overall score is 29.3. I think anyone can actually figure it out that the 5th driver on this slide, the consequence driven accountability, is running into negative. This is minus 6.34. And that is the beauty of this diagnosis. So, as a consultant, you're able to quickly diagnose and help your organization, your client organization, to understand something related to our consequence management in our organization doesn't seem to be working well. This is the diagnosis. Now that is where the solutioning part comes in, the next one. And the second lowest score on this one is leader driven accountability, right, which is only 18.9. So if you just see, while a few others like process driven accountability and person driven accountability are slightly higher, and maybe if others also are at that level, they would have attained the standard of accountability and nPAS. But since they are finding it difficult to match up to that in at least 2 areas, now that is where the diagnosis comes. That is where the deeper work as a consultant you need to do. And I think that is also available on the right side. If you just take a look, maybe it's a too small a font, but if you just take a look at it, the nPAS report helps you take a much deeper dive. It is so detailed that it just almost tells you what is missing. Suppose leader driven accountability is lower. Now, what in leader driven accountability that is missing? Now you can absolutely see it very, very straight away. Maybe it's too small. What it really says
I
is
Yeah,
empowerment is lower. Maybe you can just mention the score there. Empowerment is 12.34, and
12.34.
trusting people is
Trusting people
6.57.
is 6.57. Yeah,
Now you almost diagnosed what is actually the issue with our own leaders in this organization. Maybe our leaders are not empowering enough, that and they are not trusting enough. Which maybe they are not trusting enough, therefore they are not empowering. Now that is the problem. And the problem is when leaders do not empower, so obviously accountability gets pushed up, right? So I disown. I'll just do what my boss asks me. Now don't ask me for results or outcomes, because I'm not the owner, my boss is the owner. Now it's clearly pulling down your nPAS. I think this is exactly the diagnostics that you can bring to the table. And when you have a meaningful discussion like this with your client, the senior management, I think you can engage them much, much deeper. It will be amazing kind of a conversation. Now, obviously, your client is going to now ask you, okay, so if this is a diagnosis, now how do we fix it? Now that is where the solutioning part comes in. So now, obviously, you may play the role of a coach. You may have to do some training sessions. You may have to have one-on-one conversations. You may have to set expectations with your leaders. Their style of functioning could be very different. Whatever, there are these interventions that you can plan based on your conversation within your client organization. So this, I just thought I'll explain to you with an example, because you asked me this question: how can I leverage nPAS? So the first
right.
one is help your client organization get nPASed. If they have attained, I think you have scored a big point, that I think I helped my client organization reach nPAS. Great. But what if they don't? Then I think I will wear the next hat of diagnosis, measurement, and solutioning aspect.
Solutioning.
And that is where my work as a consultant goes much deeper with my client organization. One, you are adding more value, you are giving a lot of depth and a lot of insight, which otherwise is not available to your client organization. And obviously, when you have more work, that is also means, I think, more revenue as well. So nPAS becomes instrumental in more than one way. The last way, I think, last idea that I have to use nPAS is, many a time we'd like to drive some initiatives, in our client organizations. We want to introduce a performance management system. We want to create some forums. We want to revisit an incentive scheme. Great. Before doing all of that, the smart way of doing consulting would be do a pre-nPAS and post-nPAS. A pre-nPAS and post-nPAS actually proves the efficacy of your initiatives straight away. See, before I
Absolutely.
did anything, I have not introduced any systems, no performance management, no incentive scheme, nothing I've done, but I want to do. But let me establish the baseline nPAS. nPAS baseline is this. For example, if this is organization, when I started, now I started at 29.3. Great. Now you do a lot of your interventions and do post nPAS. And now what if this goes up to 54? You can happily say that, yes, I think my contribution has taken nPAS from 29 to 54. And that is the efficacy indicator that we have, right? So a lot of times consultants need to have a way of showcasing the value that you brought to the table. So nPAS pre and nPAS post could actually fill that particular gap. So in a nutshell, if you were to just put it together, you can be a catalyst helping your client organizations get nPASed. That's one way. If they miss that standard, then you can scientifically analyze, dig deeper, and drive necessary actions in a very collaborative, which means your engagement with your client organization is going to be much deeper. Or the
Right.
third one is it's an efficacy proof. You can showcase the contribution that you made with the pre and the post nPAS as well. So these are the three immediate ways that I can think of. But of course, I think in our experience, we've seen the moment someone has nPAS, a full-fledged report, along with its AI capabilities. We have nPAS.ai as just as a website. But if someone were to take the entire nPAS advanced report, it has got so much of details, so much. And thankfully, we have integrated AI tool as a part of it, so that a lot of questions that as consultant you may like to be prepared before going to the client also can be checked up on our portal itself, and then you are in a much better position to facilitate your dialogues at your client organization. So it's a very rich tool, and the way I have been using it, the way I think I've seen some of the other friends, consulting friends, are using it. It's a fantastic way, and it's a very holistic thing. Now, the interesting part is it talks about culture, it talks about leadership, it talks about incentives, it talks about performance management. It also talks about hiring the right people with that ownership mindset. So it actually integrates several aspects of people management in a way. Now, when I was explaining nPAS, after listening to all of this, they said, looks like it is not just an HR tool. This seems to be more driving your entire, the business strategy. Because business strategy implementation requires all these elements, because otherwise strategy remains on paper, on a PPT. They never actually turn into live results. So they said, unless my strategy is also going with nPAS kind of organization, my results are not going to come. I'll have a grand plan but no results. And the combination seems to be a great strategy plus nPAS is going to be performance as such. So there are multiple ways that people started realizing the power of nPAS and started using it. Sometimes all those experiential sharing are also learning for me as well, when they tell me that this is how they used nPAS. So that's a very interesting learning for me as well.
No, in fact, this just takes my thought to a few comparisons. People talk about skill and will. I think that is more at an individual level.
Yeah.
Saying skill alone is not good enough. You need skill and will. Similarly, strategy and execution both are
Yes.
important. Either of them is zero, your result is zero. And similarly, it takes me back to your equation. Performance is equal to capability multiplied by accountability, and both are important. I think, this slide in particular gives a very clear picture. If I were to be a consultant, how should I really be leveraging a framework like nPAS? So, thank you, Dr. Raj, so far. But I think this is the right moment for us to take a brief pause from our interaction, and let me just take a moment to see if there are any Q&As.
Yeah, I see one question. If I may just pick it up, I can see one question
Yeah,
here.
please,
The
please go
question
ahead.
is, what can be considered as optimal score in a mid-sized organization? Will size of the organization matter in this? I think that's a question from Sriram. So I think it doesn't really depend on the size of the organization. Our benchmarks are not based on the size of the organization, because the five drivers are the same. The standards of npas are same, whether it's a small organization, whether you're a large organization or medium organization, the standards are all, I mean, they're all same. So it doesn't, the quick answer is it doesn't vary with the size at all. Okay, so having said this, what is the benchmark for npas? I think maybe that is something that we can discuss separately, because we are not going to say that so much is the percentage that you're going to be achieving, and where some of the organizations might be a little tempted to go back and start influencing some of those results, and we are not going to divulge that aspect, because as conceptually, if I were to answer that, not a specific number, our methodology of npast organization is you must be good at all the five drivers to some extent, and as an overall organization you must be good at that particular level. So it doesn't say that, oh, I've got a terrific process of driving accountability in my organization, but what to do, my leaders are weak, and can I still get npas? The answer is no. It's not very easy to get actually npast. But if someone has npast, I think they have achieved, and that means they have created a beautifully well balanced organization. That is the indicator. And as a consultant, if you are able to help an organization to achieve that, I think that's fantastic. I mean, you really you built a great organization. I mean, that's the whole satisfaction. So that's one question.
Yeah, and there is another question. Uh, as a consultant, is there a way to enter into a formal arrangement with the npas team? So I think maybe
Okay.
I can take this question because I
Sure.
handle the consultants and the commercial arrangements. So if you are a consultant, there are a couple of ways we usually associate with consultants. One is a consultant who wants to really delve deeper into npas and take it deeper in a particular region. For example, it could be a country or a state or a city. What we usually have is a channel partnership model, where for that particular region, for a particular period, entire rights of taking npas to that particular clients in those regions will vest with the client partner. So the channel partnership is one way we can associate with a commercial arrangement that I will be happy to have a one-on-one and discuss. Second is, even without a channel partnership, in case your existing client is probably looking to get npas, or you suggest npas as one good opportunity to have a baseline measure, we can still, as an npas team, sit with you, work with you to actually get the client npas and give a measure. And in that process, if there are any commercials involved, again, we will definitely have an arrangement, a formal written MOU between the consultant as well as the npas team. So one is the channel partnership, which will give right over a region for a certain period. Two is without any partnership, we can still continue to work on a client to client basis. And for anything, I'm there and my team is there. We can absolutely get in touch with you anytime to give you a one on one demo and take things forward. In fact, this
Okay, since
also,
since since you are on that, the discussion about the arrangement part, there's a related question I am able to see here. It says, maybe you can just quickly answer before I take up the other questions. What is the approximate pricing of npas for a client?
yeah, the pricing of npas, it depends on the size of the organization and the number of employees, basically size in the sense the number of employees. It starts with $1,000 to get a company npas through the process of npas is about $1,000, and on top of that, it depends on the employee size. So the baseline is in INR, it is about 85,000 plus GST is the starting point to get an organization NPASed.
Okay. So now there is
Yeah.
another interesting, technical question. I'll just, take it up. It
Yeah.
says, why do you call it as a net performance? And the second question is NPAS a lead indicator or a lag indicator? It's an interesting technical question. One, why is it called net? Because the way NPAS is measured is we look at the factors that are contributing to accountability and the factors that are pulling down accountability, and we actually separate. I mean, we consider both of them, and the net is what is net. And when I say sometimes NPAS could be in the negative, that means the factors that are pulling down accountability in an organization are much stronger than the factors that are contributing to accountability. So, in fact, any organization that is running into the negative NPAS, I think, has danger bells ringing. So, there are a lot of factors that are pulling down accountability in your organization. So, therefore, it is called the net part. And the next one is it lag indicator or a lead indicator? I would actually put it that way, that it is a lead indicator in terms of performance. So if you have high NPAS, I think it is going to lead to healthier performance as an organization. I think because my definition itself says P is equal to C multiplied by A. Accountability is a factor that contributes to performance. So we are not saying this itself, but as a measure, if I were to say, have you just like have you passed? Have you got ISO certification? No, we know ISO certification alone is not going to deliver my business results, bottom line. But we believe that having ISO is a necessary discipline to achieve the results. And same is the case with NPAS, that if you do not have these 5 factors, it's very unlikely that you achieve the results. So I think these are the lead indicators if you have the high score. But as a milestone, we say NPAS organization. And in our experience, if an organization doesn't NPAS itself, I think very likely that they are not hitting their optimal performance. I think they are capable of achieving much more, which they are not. It is very, very, we are very clear about that particular theoretical, concept part.
There is one more question which
Okay.
says, isn't the case wherein bigger the organization, perceptions and opinions matter more, influencing the score in terms of the number of responses, perhaps?
It's simple statistics. I think, in fact, we technically we say that we don't run NPAS for organizations less than 50, bare minimum 50 and above. It is just to say that statistically, I think the larger the sample, the larger the responses, and more robust is the measure. So obviously, the larger organizations even out any outliers. In fact, it's a good thing that they won't be able to do that. If I have 1,000 strong organization, 10,000 people organization, and so many of them are rating it higher, obviously I think that means something. I won't be able to influence the entire organization of 9,000 people, right? So in fact, it gets evened out. The bigger the sample, the better it is. I mean, that's our stand. Having said this, some organizations have requested, when they are still at around 60, 70 member team, they still like to have NPAS kind of thing, which we have done. And in any case, we won't be able to do less than 50.
Sure. In fact, Dr. Raj, one of the frequently asked questions, even when we interact with some of our client organizations, is NPAS for a particular individual? Like, for example, for Mr. X, can I know what is his or her accountability like? Or is it more at an organization level? This is a fundamental question that is repeatedly being asked. Maybe you can clarify.
No, when we say organization is NPASed, I think we are talking about only at an organization. This is only a standard that an organization collectively achieves. So we are not going to single out an individual. But having said this, in the nPAS advanced report, you can zero down on specific demographics. You can say accountable nPAS in that particular zone, right? In that particular business unit is falling short. In fact, that is pulling down the overall nPAS as an organization. Such kind of a diagnostic ability this tool has, but it doesn't single out any individual because it is not meant for an individual level tool at all. It is only for organizations. So we call an organization nPAS, not an individual nPAS.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. And there is one
Then,
more question, I think maybe as a
yeah,
little related one. I'll just quickly read it before we take your next question.
sure.
Yeah, he says, I think Anil has corroborated saying it has nothing to do with the size, but rather process and people driven accountability, leader actually providing leadership. And yeah, no, I think in our experience, process also has and individuals also have. In fact, our 5 drivers are something that we have validated, we have studied it more than enough. So it is not enough to say that we have great leaders but poor process. Even then, it doesn't really work. nPAS will not go up. I think we have seen it all the 5 together. In fact, some people ask us technically the question that is there any separate weightage that you give to 5 drivers? And our answer is no, because all 5 drivers collectively are driving, are driving collectively the nPAS score. So that's just a quick technical question.
Sure. In fact, we have one more question. In fact, a couple of questions. How can I use nPAS in my training and coaching interventions? That is one question we have.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
the second question is how is it helpful if I'm a TA professional, talent acquisition professional?
Yeah, I think when we slice it up to each of the sub functions of within HR, suppose I'm a coach and I'm into leadership development or I'm into talent acquisition. I think each of the 5 drivers, maybe I will then be able to influence each of those drivers separately. For example, if I'm a talent acquisition professional, then the kind of leaders that I'm hiring, the kind of a persons that I'm handling, so I have to make accountability as a consideration during my hiring process. Unfortunately, the whole nomenclature has been that oh, we do skill based hiring, we don't worry about other things as per. Our belief is that I think skill based hiring is fairly an immediate term solution, that right now I need X skill and I'm hiring X skill. But if you really want to build organizations, you have to consider other aspects. One of them is accountability. So talent acquisition individuals can influence their organizations to factor in accountability also as a part of the selection criteria. That's one. Now, the next question is about leaders and coaching, and I'm a training professional. Absolutely. The training plays a great role in inducing accountability at an individual level, at a culture level, at a leader level. All your training programs will be, in fact, we have a case study. Someone asked this question that do you have any case study, how it has contributed to organizational growth? See, nPAS and organization growth, I think, needs longitudinal study, which I think this tool is a 3-year-old kind of a tool. So we do not have enough data to corroborate saying it is going to be a longitudinal kind of the correlation. But I think the immediate signals that I can share is, in one of the organizations in Malaysia when this was deployed, the immediate intervention that they found was leadership training, leadership coaching, and with a focus on how do I make my leaders driving accountability through their conversations. Now, in fact, there is one of the books which talks about crucial conversations. The I'm uh, not getting the author's name there. Perry or something, Kate Perry or something. Crucial conversation. The same person also talks about accountable conversations, accountability conversation. So there's talking about how do I drive my leadership conversation with my team members in such a way that it induces accountability in them, right? And also as a culture of collaboration, not just about team building, but building a collaboration beyond camaraderie, as I mentioned earlier, to create co-ownership towards results. So there's a lot of component of npas results that can feed into the input, as an input to learning professionals or coaching professionals or leadership development professionals. So these are all, I'm very specific. Once you take a look at the npas details and the diagnostics and measures, I think we can tweak and plan various interventions based on the client requirements.
Absolutely. In fact, there is one question, and maybe I will combine it with another FAQ that I keep getting asked also, Dr. Raj. NPAS looks like it requires a mix of HR and business consulting skills. But in general, I think the group of consultants that we've been working with, from an NPAS perspective, what is the expectation of NPAS team from a consultant? Do we require them to have a certain certification, or do we require them to have a certain level of experience? What kind of consultants is NPAS team happy to collaborate with? Maybe you
No,
can, at different
if
levels, perhaps you can help us.
no, if I'm a consultant, I mean, if I understand your question correctly, if I'm a consultant, if I want to go and utilize npas as a part of my consulting practice, what kind of a preparedness I need to have? So one is, I think, at least at a conceptual level, not a technical level, conceptual level, I should understand what is this npas all about, which is what was shared in this webinar, or I think it can be discussed even more detail as well. But more importantly, we must understand that there is a, what is the purpose of npas for a client organization? How do I, it's not just about pitching some tool. Sometimes we are quite fancy about oh yeah, I got that certification, this certification, kind of a thing, but that's also an indicator. But here I think we must ensure that npas means building such an organization of these kind of a characteristics. So when I go and talk to my managing director, or my client business head or somebody, I should say that can we collectively together build such an organization, and which means we must know whether we are able to attain that standard or not, kind of a thing. So conceptual clarity, and be very clear about the purpose of using npas. Now the second one is, if I have if my the client organization has not achieved, then I think I need to do the diagnostic study. Beyond this, I think in terms of the online, the set it up, the website, or all the mechanics, etc. I think all of that has been taken care by the npas team. So there is no worry at all, except intellectual preparedness. The technical in terms of the technology preparedness, the websites and none of them is the bother to any consultant. I think it's a very self-explanatory. But then interpretation, because that's exactly the future of consulting is going to be. Tools are going to be there, but how do I draw the juice out of it and then help my client organizations to get the value out of it? I think that is where the consultants insights and experience is going to be tremendously adding value. So other than that, there is no other kind of a technical preparation required.
Sure. And to some extent, I mean, to a large extent, our npas.ai can also act as an advisor. The AI tool itself is built in a way where it can advise and give a baseline recommendations from which we can act upon. Of course, which means I will be more than happy to give a formal demo of the entire tool, the framework, and how we all can collaborate. I think we are almost on time for 5 o'clock. I think, as promised, we started on time. So, Dr. Raj, unless you want to add anything further as a closing remark, I would like to thank our audiences and all the consultants and professionals who've been a part of this webinar. It has been a wonderful interaction with you, Dr. Raj. And anyone who wants to reach out to us, I think this is the contact. You can probably take a screenshot and reach out. More than happy to connect. Dr. Raj, in case you have any closing remarks, it's
No, I
yours.
think it's been a pleasure to share about the work that we have been doing. It's always there's a sense of pride to share with my fellow consultants, freelancers, and advisors who have been in the same space. that here is a tool which seems to be very, very powerful. I think we must use this for the benefit of our own client organizations, and more importantly, bring that depth into our own consulting practice. So revenues is an outcome, it just happens. But I think what we bring is more value and the depth into our own consulting insights. And when you bring that, obviously, I think revenue is just an offshoot of that whole thing. So I'm very happy that I got this forum to share about nPAS with my fellow consultants. There seems to be tremendous potential. Give it a try. Know more about it. We'll be more than happy to share more insights and more experiences with each one of you. Once again, thank you everyone for joining and giving me a forum to share the perspectives about nPAS. Thank you so much.
And the pleasure is mine too. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a nice day.